For a long time I've wanted to document in some detail the elements that make up a planned flight to some destination. The opportunity to do this occurred when Margaret and I flew to Crescent City from San Diego for the 4th of July 2010. We broke the trip to refuel at Santa Rosa, north of San Francisco. So the overall trip totaled 799 miles, with the Santa Rosa leg being 552 miles. It's the Santa Rosa leg we're going to look at here. If you use FlightAware for tracking airline flights, this is what a flight track looks like. You can also convert it to a terrain view, but the most helpful to pilots is this view on a so-called aviation sectional chart. You can see that the route took us over Los Angeles, then to Santa Barbara, then Monterey Bay, then outside San Francisco Bay to Point Reyes, and then to Santa Rosa, about 50 miles north of San Francisco. So it was an 8 a.m.
Bye guys.
Adios to the fish. Load up the car and get down I-5 to Montgomery Field and get that plane out of the hangar. I should perhaps point out at this stage that the flight would comply with what's called IFR, or Instrument Flight Rules. This means that the flight must be filed with air traffic control, who will subsequently control every aspect of it. I had filed my flight plan the previous day, and early on the day of the flight, before leaving the house, I had had a detailed briefing giving me weather forecasts, any pilot warnings in place, any equipment out of order en route, and any unusual activities that might affect the flight. At this point, I am making my first radio contact with ATC, and, as they often do, they changed the previously submitted plan. That requires that the revised plan be loaded into the plane's navigation system. The plane I fly is a Cirrus 22. A state-of-the-art single-engine 4-seat plane. This particular model is 6 years old. Having completed all checks, we taxi out into the morning San Diego gloom caused by the 1,800-foot-high marine layer. Then we park at runway 28 right run-up area and go through the pre-flight checklist, which is built into the plane. Then we're cleared for takeoff and head down the runway, rotating at about 72 knots. Pretty soon we're through the clouds, though the cloud layer below us will persist to beyond LA. The avionics on the Cirrus are state-of-the-art, maybe better than on many airliners. The cockpit has what's called an all-glass cockpit, which means that the traditional dials are replaced by two main displays, each of which can show multiple screens. The plane is capable of detecting other planes, of giving weather data in real time, of detecting convection and terrain, and much more. Much of the time it is flown in autopilot mode and is capable of making an automated approach to a runway. One particular feature that Margaret likes is the plane has its own parachute. Flying IFR means following routes shown on IFR charts like this one, and implementing approach procedures to land, such as this one for Santa Rosa. By now we were starting to get into the Santa Barbara mountains north of LA. You can actually see Santa Barbara in the distance. Note the next waypoint, San Marcos, and Santa Barbara Airport. San Marcos is 24 miles and 8 minutes off. Crescent City, whose distance and fuel remaining I'm monitoring in case I choose to bypass Santa Rosa and go direct, is 524 miles. Note on the PFD, our pilot's flight display, that we're dealing with a 17-knot adverse wind, which reduces our true airspeed from 178 to 165 knots. Note also that we're flying at 10,000 feet. Even though it's July, there are still patches of snow to be seen in California. As we continue northwards, ATC gives us the option of a more direct route to Monterey, away from the coast and over California's agricultural Central Valley. As you can see, the moving display indicates we're approaching Monterey Bay, and fortunately, when you look out the window, sure enough the bay is there, shrouded in some coastal cloud. Thank God for that. Indeed, as we are about to overfly Monterey Airport, we get a look at Salinas Airport close by. San Francisco Bay is hazy as we pass, with the city under clouds. But we can just make out the Golden Gate Bridge. Soon Point Reyes appears, then we're descending over agricultural land, and finally the airport comes into view. Since the airport is clear, ATC fly us to the point where we can see the airport, then cancel IFR since their radar cannot see us at the approach altitudes. We are handed over to the tower and make a visual approach. The approach was pretty gusty, about 22 knot gusts. Nothing like the 35 knot gusts we later experienced at Crescent City. But they were headwinds and the landing was actually very uneventful. In my defense, I'd like to say that the plane is not actually shaking around to the extent that the camera appears to be. But I'd better not say any more than that. So to the extent that one of the main objectives of every flight is to make it safely to Earth, we can declare that objective was satisfactorily met here. One final tidbit. At Santa Rosa it took 48 gallons to refill the tanks. That meant we had 34 gallons remaining, or 42% of the fuel capacity. On the way to Santa Rosa, we hadn't particularly tried to conserve fuel and had adverse winds the whole way. All in all, that's quite a testimony to the range of the Cirrus. Quite a plane.